better.
Yeah.
Okay, so this film was taken to Israel, and
I think we have 1 second, sorry. Are you okay? Okay, I think we're okay now. Carry along.
so it was sent to Israel, and venue after venue was cancelled. And I'm rather ashamed to say it was cancelled because of certain people in England, members of the Board of Deputies, who put pressure on the people who ran the venues. And these two ladies had to hightail it from Renana to Jerusalem, and from place to place in Jerusalem, and particularly from the Begin Centre. Now, some of you probably know that the name Begin is very meaningful to me. I grew up in the Jabotinsky fold. My father was a friend of Jabotinsky. Begin was at my husband's bar mitzvah. And when I heard that the people who now run the Begin Centre cancelled this film, I thought to myself, Begin must be turning in his grave. They're two ladies who don't come from our community, two ladies who, as far as I can tell, didn't have a past thinking about Jewish people, have come about and made a film that people in our community should have made, that the people of Hollywood, all those people Hollywood, Jewish, where is their film? Where are they talking for us? And something I've just learned that Ambrosine doesn't know is that we had to hide this venue from everybody. We informed the police this afternoon at I think 3 o'clock. At 4 o'clock, I received an email that I've only just seen, where the police called the venue organizer, the events organizer of this hotel, to cross-question them about who we had, who was coming, how many security guards we had, and fortunately, she's a lovely lady, and she basically didn't tell them too much. And if I look around the room, I know most of you, what was there for them to hide from you? Why do we have to run around hiding what is happening to Jews? I'm speechless. Rabbi Klein asked the question, and he said, can they not see? We're going to let Katie and Janice have a little say here, and I've got a few questions, and I'd like to pose that to Janice, who comes from a conservative political background. And I did a little bit of reading, and what I didn't find was very much of an association with Jewish people. And yet you made this film, and I think the audience might like to know what stirred you to make this film.
Thank you very much, first of all, Ambrosine and Sharon, for inviting us here and putting us amongst all you extremists here. You know? I've never made a film before. Never thought about making a film before. I write, I've written for the Daily Mail, I've written even for the Guardian against them. I became a politician because I saw what was happening in my country and I was very unhappy about it. I actually wrote a book, first of all, it's called The Migrant Crime Wave, and you can download it from my website. And we started looking at the crime statistics across Europe, where we've had the open borders, the open Schengen, and we started looking at the numbers of people that were in our jails who were foreign. As my friend Nicolas Bay said from the Rassemblement National, Marine Le Pen's party, 80% of them were Muslim. And this goes across the board. It isn't so dire in this country yet, and we had to dig deep to find those answers to the questions. And a pattern started forming. And then Jeremy Corbyn took over the Labour Party. I have no truck with socialism. I detest socialism, absolutely. And I stood on a Conservative platform in 2010 against them. I stood in a constituency called Batley in Spen, when Joe Cox was murdered. I wasn't allowed to talk about immigration, Europe, and we had a 20% Muslim demographic in my constituency. And what I found was ignorance towards Jews. I found that they wouldn't integrate, they didn't speak English, and they were coming en masse. And I wasn't allowed to talk about that. David Cameron stopped me speaking about it, and that was quite shocking. That population has now grown exponentially. We've seen no stop to that. And then you look at the direct correlation of the anti-Semitic attacks that are happening, and it's no... let's just say, I think it's shocking that Corbyn took over the Labour Party and was allowed to take over the Labour Party, and there's no sign of him stepping down, and the correlation of the attacks, because it's now been legitimised against the Jewish people. And that's what shocked me. And I started looking at the statistics across Europe, and you sit in the European Parliament and you listen to the left and the Greens and the Socialists, and they campaign for Palestine all the time. They don't talk about Jews, they talk about Zionists, etc. And the campaigns that they have in there, it goes across the board, and the committees that we sit on, and it was quite shocking. So when I put all this together, I thought I've got to do something. No, I don't have a Jewish background. I don't have any faith, but I do believe in our Judeo-Christian culture. And I used to believe that my country should be secular. We should have no truck with religion whatsoever. And so I started looking at the madrasas up in Putney and Spen and what was happening when you go through East London. And I thought, we have to protect that. It's people like me from a secular background that has to go out and has to say, we have to stand up for what we believe in. Yes, actually, I do believe we should have religious programs in our schools, but it has to be fundamentally Christian. Yes. And that's coming from somebody who has no faith. So we made the film, and it was also important to try and slap this myth down that the people in my group, the European Nations for Freedom, the Marine Le Pen, Salvini, who is running his country now, who's standing up for what we believe in, the likes of the Austrians, the Alternative for Deutschland in Germany. This film is going to be shown in the Bundestag, it's going to be shown in the Italian Parliament, it's going to be shown in the French Parliament as well, in the French National Assembly. It's going to be shown all over, and some new friends of ours, the Czech Republic and the Estonians, because we have come back stronger in the European Parliament only today. So we're not going away, we stand up for you. So all these labels of far right is really, really damaging, because there are the nutters out there. They're trying to find us this evening, the new fascists, the new Nazis, and it comes from the left. It comes from the momentum, it comes from the but we're rising up across Europe, people like me, Salvini, Le Pen, and Strache, and the Austrians, they're all rising up because the people believe in what we're doing. I'm not going to say anymore. I think the film speaks for itself, and I'll hand back to Sharon. I'm sure you want to hear the star of the show, Katie. Thank you.
I guess everybody here tonight has read something about Katie and has seen her output. And being somewhat Marmitey, I think most people in this room are the people who spread it liberally on their toast. The de-platformers, clearly failures. Anyway, Katie, forgive me for saying this, please. Given your output about the fat and the old and the Jews, all of which attributes are represented in this audience tonight, would you explain some of your output, as Boris said, of his, as being satirically wrenched out of context? Is there a tendency for some to take words out of context instead of looking at the actions? And given this output, what attracted you to this project?
Thank you. Thank you, Leslie. So I wanted to say a couple of things of my own first. And that was thank you very much, all of you, for being here. I know you have other things you could be doing. I know many of you have been through 2 or 3 iterations of a venue, or otherwise, or may have thought you were supposed to be somewhere else. And indeed, people that have gone to another venue tonight before coming here. So I really, really appreciate it. And for me, it's a hugely emotional thing to be in a room with my Jewish friends and show this. I found it hard to do. I found it hard to show this to you because I feel like I'm showing something upsetting and I have no wish to upset any of you. So I found it an emotional thing to do this evening, and it affected me in a way that it hasn't affected me when other audiences have shown this too. So I wanted to say thank you. I'm really struck by, I will get to a point, I promise, the silencing that happened to us in Israel. I secured us a lovely municipal venue in Ra'anah that was taken from us by London and the Board of Deputies in London. And a particular individual in the Board of Deputies who got hold of that venue and took it from us.
Shame on them.
And subsequently conspired to take 3 other venues for us. And so by the time we finally got a venue, that was our 4th venue in Jerusalem, supported by the Deputy Mayor of Jerusalem. Such a fantastic woman. We had 50 beautiful Israelis, so determined. They saw the good in what we're trying to do. And they so believed in the good that they drove like bats out of hell from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem to make the new venue. Some of them were projectors in the boots of their car because we were just going to project it onto the walls of the city if we had to at that point. So just a really emotional journey this has been. And I found it incredibly upsetting that agencies who say that they're working on behalf of the Jewish community appear to be working, if not against you, then not in any way to help you. And that's a really upsetting thing. As to comments I've made in the past, no, I stand by all of them. Things I say, I mean, I don't have a problem with fat people. I'm just not a big fan of fat people who don't take responsibility for how big they are. I stand by the tweets that I've said. If they offend you, then, you know, I think I don't give offence, you choose to take it and you need to make better decisions. So I am a tough talker. But the thing with tough talkers is they don't get knocked down that easily. And so jihadis have come from my head. The leftists report my children to social services to try and take my children for me. The leftists come up with lawfare litigation against me that caused me to sell my family home. I've lost every job I've ever had because of the left and because of the things I say. So if you imagine for one moment I don't pay a price for trying to speak truth to power, I've paid the ultimate price. I own nothing, I have no job, but I have the truths, and I'm still determined to tell them, and I apologise for none of it.
Okay, so we're going to open up the questions to the floor now. So, So who wants to ask a question? Okay, if you want to come up, we'll have two or three
Let's have
people.
3 of you come up and stand here because we've only got one. We've got
Can
cables.
I just introduce this man here? I don't know if you saw a video of Jeremy Corbyn with a man standing behind him saying terrorist. So this is the man.
I just wanted to say actually that I am a devout Islamophobe, much like my friends here. And when I say that, I'm not phobic of Muslims. There are some very nice Muslims. But I also want to ask you if you're aware there is a difference between moderate Muslims and liberal Muslims. Because moderate Muslims are people who don't go out and blow themselves up. They're the ones who perhaps sympathise with the ones who blow themselves up. Liberal Muslims are the ones who don't adhere to the fundamental rules of Islam. Because the fundamental rules of Islam, of course, are jihad, as we know, Sharia law, which is not conducive to living in a modern Western society. Now, the question I want to ask you, and ask all the audience, is down to what you said. You said, oh, I don't think, I can't believe what's happening to them. Well, I can believe it, because we have 2 non-Jewish friends who are doing our work for us. And how many of our Jewish friends are doing the work for us in fighting what is a very difficult campaign against not only anti-Judaism, but anti-Christianism? So I want to ask you, why are we relying on you guys? Where are you guys standing up and fighting? You know, in the last Gaza war, what do we have? All of a sudden people were desperate and they go and stand outside the Israeli embassy waving the Israeli flag and then going home for their nice middle class. So I want to ask you, why is it only you guys, non-Jews, who are doing our work for us? Where are you guys?
You are.
I will answer
Introduce yourself.
My name's David. I've got a Facebook page called Brexiteers, and in 2018 the page was banned for 6 months of the year, and this year so far I've been banned 5 months from Facebook, and it's scrolling back 2 years from my past history, seeing stuff that I've posted, etc. I'm banning me for any reason they can. I've also done fundraising events for UKIP, which Stuart Agnew spoken at. I've had the police attend, like you've had, to the venue and tell them not to carry on with this event or to close it down unless we supply security. Lucky enough, I run a security firm, so I've supplied door supervisors and the event was allowed to take place. My question is it just, I don't think it's just the Islamification of Europe we need to worry about. It's these leftists that control our governments and our media platforms and are silencing us for no reason. So my question is, how do we tackle the Islamification of Europe when our very own people are the cause and the people that are attacking us? How do we move forward?
Yeah.
Who's next? No? Okay. Well, you need to come up here. We'll get you next. Come on. You need to come up if you want to
My name's
question.
Janice, I'm here part of the security team, and the guy that spoke before this guy was absolutely right. So the question that I want to ask you, the same as him, where are all you activists? Where are you? Sitting at home being keyboard warriors?
Sorry.
But it is, I'll tell you why it is.
You've
Because
done a survey of everybody's
Okay.
no, if you allow me to speak, the question is,
Yeah.
why, where are all the activists? And when you say it isn't fair, the other question is, why isn't it fair when we hold events, there's always the same people at these events? And by the way, just on the other subject, I just want to quote the wonderful Mahir Khan. That might upset some of you, but there we go. Do you all agree that Mahir Khan was right? Don't you agree? When he said the moderate Islamists only want to moderately kill Jews?
Okay.
Question. I don't know if you can answer any of these questions. Can you?
I say something?
Okay, excuse me.
We don't want to hear everybody's opinion.
I am comparing this with Amnesty, and we do not want people jumping up from the audience, not even my good brother.
I'm Sharon's brother.
Okay, quiet. Have you got something to say, or next question?
I'll try and answer the questions. As I said to you, that my friends across Europe have come back bigger and stronger. We now represent 30% of the European people. There's 500 million people in Europe. And don't forget, the EU isn't Europe. So we are fighting for you, but you've got to help us. I think the scowls are falling from people's eyes. David, what do we do about it? I think the No platform started in 2014 when I first stood on a platform for the European elections back then. I was down in Brighton. I had to have security for the first time in my life. I had security. My father fought on the Russian convoys, and I had the Brighton police telling me not to stand on a platform. Oh, it's all very difficult tonight because we've got the football on as well. I said, absolutely no way. You have your officers on the street. And I was shocked for the first time in my life. As a Conservative, I was all lovely and cuddly, given a platform everywhere. As soon as I joined UKIP, I was deplatformed. And I had little old ladies of 80 years old going in to hear us speak, and they were called Nazis and fascists. And that was shocking. That started in 2014. So you can see it's racking up. What do we do about it? Well, actually, we close our borders. We say no more migration. You come here on a points-based system, like they do in Australia, and no more, I'm afraid, this is the first time I'm going to say this, no more Muslim migration until they've integrated. Because I've met women who are 50, 60 years old. They came here 50 years ago. They had to learn our language because they had to take their children to school. They had to do shopping. They had to integrate because they were in the minority. Those women now do not speak English because they don't have to. And you've still got girls, educated, second, third generation, who've been to universities, have got fantastic jobs, doctors, dentists. I've met them. And they import their taxi driver husbands who haven't had an education. So that's what we have to stop. It's harsh. And it may sound really against everything that we believe in. But until we actually integrate we don't move on. Ellis, I don't know what to say to you, my darling. Katie.
And just very briefly, what I love is that when you get a lot of Jewish friends in the room together, you guys manage to argue about everything. Like if I ever want to feel like my home is peaceful, I have 3 children under the age of 15, 14 and 10, I just come hang out with my Jewish friends and you guys always argue more than my kids will ever do. So I think that's a beautiful thing. And secondly, I don't think it's fair to say that people here aren't doing enough. I don't think it's fair to say, where are you? Because a lot of people here are. And I think there's a real danger. The people who are in this room right now, for me, are the bravest of the brave. Am I boring you? It was a really big yawn. And it's
It's just a long day at work.
She was sitting next to me
Love
before.
her. That's what you bored her, sir. Come on. No, I think people that are in this room are the brave ones. Because I've been in rooms before, where churches before, where doors have been broken, windows have been broken, and the congregation's been pelted with eggs. So I thank you for coming. I see that you are the ones doing something about it, and I really appreciate your support.
I want to ask a question, and it takes us back to the deplatforming question. And to Katie here, coming forward to tell Jews, to tell us where the danger is. What is the danger of it? Why we are running away from Europe? And what I want to ask you is, what would you say? What would you say to those who wanted to deplatform this event when a friend of ours is running down the street in East 1 with a Muslim with a knife telling him that he wants to cut his head off? What would you tell our Jewish community, inverted commas, non-elected leadership to do?
Yeah, oh, I've got 2 microphones. I can be twice as loud. No, I don't feel the time is far away. When we were stood in the place that finally gave us refuge to show Homelands in Jerusalem with the support of Fleur, the deputy mayor, it was the same place where a gentleman stood up and predicted the coming of the Holocaust. And I honestly don't think we are far from that. And I would love to say to the leftists and the Board of Deputies and the individuals on the left who ally themselves with the Muslim Council in preference to standing up for the Jewish community, what will you say to your children? When your children look at you and ask, where were you? What did you do? What will you say to them? And I know that I will always be able to look myself in the eye and know that I tried. I only see one way that this is going. Islam is the single biggest threat that faces Western Europe and America today. And I truly believe that in time, Jewish people will need to return to Israel for safety. And I believe the left and the Board of Deputies and Jewish agencies in cabal with the Muslims will have allowed that to happen. And I'm not bothered if I need to go to prison for saying that, because it doesn't stop it happening just by locking me up.
May I just say you're fantastic. And the other thing, just very quickly, it's not a question, 2 words. I went to Kisharon to volunteer. There was a Muslim lady interviewing me, and I'm a troublemaker, so because it was with children, I happened to say, well, what do you think of Mohammed saying that that 6-year-old girls can be married? She said to me, it's because they mature earlier. So obviously I didn't get that volunteering job. Then Campaign for Antisemitism went to them because they are great, and they said to me, once they looked at Facebook, no, you're going to influence my all the volunteers I was supposed to be looking after badly. So help me, what do? I've joined Brexit, I've gone for an interview, hopefully I'll be a candidate for West Harrow, but I want to know, you're in the middle of it, so you're they will want to show this film, won't they? So how can you make them do that? How can we give enough information to everybody so it gets shown everywhere? Thank you.
Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle. It's a question for Janet. Well, it's for both of you, actually. We're talking about populations, and if the barriers go up and not one Muslim comes into this country, it doesn't matter because they're having big families, multiple wives, and unless the native British community realise what the Israelis know and our Orthodox community know, you have to have big families. You know, I see families here, friends, their daughters can wait, people aren't getting married enough, they're not having enough children, and unless people actually realise, because we don't want a Holocaust or anything like that, we want to integrate the Muslim community who are here, but it's not going to happen if we're not having bigger families, because there's just no way, and I haven't heard it from, one thing, but I haven't heard it from one Brexiteer, what they're going to do about Islam. I heard Farage saying before, well, we'll have the Commonwealth countries, we've got Pakistan, and I'm thinking, hang on, nobody's actually said the problem.
Question.
So how do you think we solve it?
One more question.
I think these two ladies are inspirational.
Can you hold the microphone closer to your mouth?
Yes. I think you two ladies are absolutely inspirational. And thank you for coming. I just wanted to ask you, what do you think of Nigel Farage when he calls people like us thugs who are tattooed up to the hilt? What do you think of him? And do you think that he will stand up for what you are standing for?
Yeah, I know, I'll repeat it for you. So what do you think of Nigel Farage, and what do you think of him calling people like us thugs? And, generally, is Farage a good egg or not?
Who is people like us? I mean, who are the thugs?
I'm just repeating the question.
No, I know. Who is the thugs? Us.
Let's take the first question, where are we going to show the film? It's going to go to Germany, it's going to go to the Bundestag, it's going to go to France, Estonia, Italy, Austria, across Europe. It will be shown in
British Parliament? British Parliament?
Well, we've only got one friend, and he's in the Lords, and if we can show it there, yes. But we have no friends in the British Parliament because for decades now it has been taken over by the Liberal left. I mean, Cameron just got rid of people like me. I had to fight to get on the A-list to actually get a seat to fight because I didn't suit that Liberal left. That is made up of the likes of Amber Rudd and Anna Soubry's, etc. They were the people that took over the Conservative Party. Is that going to change with Boris taking over? I hope so. But do you know what? I wouldn't put my house on it. I wouldn't bet any money on it. As for Nigel deserves his place in the House of Lords. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely, for what he's done to our country. He has been the bravest politician of this country. However, that man, I have seen him been physically attacked because of his use, from the last he left. He had a very serious neck operation in 2015. The feral left smacked him on the head with a placard just a few days. Now, what he doesn't want to do, now I know Nigel's views on Islam, etc., but what he doesn't want is a fatwa on his head. And you can bet your life, if he starts speaking out against Islam, then he'll have a fatwa. And do you know what, if he did, the BBC and the rest of the Liberal left will not allow him to have a platform. Look what they've done to Gerard Batten. And my friends across Europe, it's the same old rubbish rather than moving on. So that's what he's afraid of. What was the other question? Population growth is a big problem in this country. What do we do about it? Well, we stop giving benefits to multiple wives because we have Sharia law operates. It was actually me that came up with the policy for UKIP and the Tories nicked it, is that you have a cap on how many children that you can have if you want benefits, because the rest of us are not paying for your lifestyle choices. And also, you have to have taxation, family-friendly policies, as they've done in Poland, actually, and Hungary. So I would have us as an offshore Singapore tomorrow, and we would leave the European Union tomorrow. So you bring taxation down, and you give the money back to the people, and you allow family-friendly policies. We're not having that. That's why you're seeing having one child or just a two-child. If we do that, we're finished.
Okay, Martin.
My name's Martin, alleged fascist and Zion Nazi. I'm obviously not, but still. I'd like to say before we start, congratulations on the film. If you do want to do more filming, supposedly we own Hollywood, supposedly. Anyway, question for you, Katie. I'm glad you mentioned the BBC, by the way. I think that one of the biggest issues is not just simply the Islamification, but it's basically the fact that our media, if the BBC say it, it must be right. If Sky News says it, it must be right. And obviously the narrative is absolutely diabolical. Now, the question is, obviously you lost your job at LBC, right? Now, I listened to Majid Nawaz, who says some amazing things. I don't know what your relationship is with him, but he says some amazing things which are absolutely true, and yet you got booted out for saying the same thing.
Yes. Exactly the same.
Opinion, please.
Hi.
Her opinion on the media, basically.
My view, and thanks for the what I wanted to ask you is, perhaps people don't realise, you all talk about Islamophobia and Islamism, etc. But isn't the problem really, didn't it really start when the Saudi Arabian government and Qatar and Kuwait started funding faculties in Oxford and Cambridge, all the universities? So basically they've entrenched themselves into British everything, society. They're in the woodwork, like woodwork. And you're dealing basically with the symptoms now. So isn't it maybe, I don't know if you can find a way to go back to that root cause and maybe pick that and loosen the bricks of what's happened? I'm asking you, is it more from that point of view, or is it easy to deal with now, which is really symptomatic? You're dealing with the symptom, not the cause.
Yeah, no, so sorry. I completely, it's like when you're trying to do the hoovering at home, isn't it? Or found by the plug. I believe it's too late for Western Europe. I believe we are dealing with the symptoms, and the cause happened 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so we are beyond the point of being able to save ourselves. And all we can take now is preventative measures, like sticking a plaster on a sore. That's why I spent so much of my time. I'm just back from a week in Israel and 2 weeks in America, because America still does have time to save itself. It's just starting now in Minnesota, Minneapolis. You've seen the new members of Congress waving their Palestinian flags as they walk into one of the greatest buildings there is on this planet. So that's the message to America, is do not let yourselves fall as we have fallen. And I think hope exists in Israel, and hope exists in America. But I have no hope for Western Europe, although I do have a fierce love for all of us on this network working together to try and resist and hold firm.
First of all, ladies, I'd like to say thank you very much for your amazing piece of work and your absolutely stunning perseverance in continuing, even though you've had avenues cut off. I know you've been chased by various agencies and such as this. Now, I know some of you in the room, some of you know me, some of you don't know me. Me and a lot of us, we've been doing activism now for over 10 years. And we know about the problems that have been going on in France. I have friends myself, some of them have left France, some of them are still remaining in France. Things have become exceedingly difficult, especially when it comes to Jews in France trying to counter-demonstrate against this kind of thing in France, where they're actually being told by authorities, well, actually, you cannot demonstrate in the same place, in the same time as the BDS, or whatever you want to call them. Now, even though we see that it's come to the precipice that it has in France, I have to tell you, after standing out on the street for over 10 years, we're about this far away from what is happening in France. That's not hysterical. That is...
What is your question?
Yes. My question is basically, if we carry on like this and we have leadership that is failing, government that is failing, where's it going to end, basically?
Anyone else?
Anyone else want to come up?
I just want to say,
Have you done?
but I don't have a question. I want to say, I would say, when you look at the room, and I think maybe 95% are Jewish, these are people who survive through thousands of years. Don't ever say there is no solution. Don't, please, it breaks my heart more than this movie. Keep the fight. People see, maybe they don't speak, and they don't speak because they are blonde, they don't have an accent like me. I can say things other people don't. I am careful what I say, because now everybody is, we know. Doctors cannot talk, they lose their license. Teachers we know, but we cannot say it's too late. And the other thing is, when you say why people are not, whoever, many people were saying, where are the activists? The solution is to stimulate everyone, every day, whenever I can, I talk about it. All people from all walks of life. English, Jewish, Chinese, Hindu, Muslims. There are many Muslims who say, I came here and I want to go, I don't want to live like in Saudi Arabia. We cannot be quiet and we cannot say there is no solution, because if you look at our history, we are still here. So, please, don't say that. Please.
Please hold the microphone absolutely.
Yeah. So, my name is Michael. I want to actually ask the panelists specifically, probably much more knowledgeable on this than myself, why, if the core of your film is really about the penetration of British society by Muslim immigration, with its effect on the Jews as part of it, why did the British people vote against white European immigration, mainly Christian, Catholic, Protestant, you name it? What happened there? That in relation to what a lot of your film is about.
Well, we didn't actually vote against it. What we did, we went into the European Union. So we had open borders. Now you have the UN working against us, the World Trade Organization, Davos. You know, we signed the Marrakesh Agreement, which means that you can't even criticize somebody. They have to be called refugees. They cannot be called illegal immigrants anymore. Mrs. May signed up to that. We didn't actually sign up to that. I'm afraid my country, our country, has sleepwalked into this. You know, they sleepwalked into multiculturalism because Blair was swept in 1997. Nobody questioned him. When I stood in Batley, I had Muslims coming up to me saying, what's your immigration policy? Oh, sorry mate, can't talk about it. Or can I bring my wife? No, sorry mate, can't talk about it because Cameron's told me I can't do. Can we talk about Europe and open borders? No, sorry, can't talk about it because of Cameron. So that's we are where we are because of them, because of Europe, because of the open borders. Now, the Pew Research Centre in America reckons that about 50,000 terrorists, jihadis, slipped through in the 2015 migrant crisis. They're still coming. Salvini stopped a whole boat of African Muslims coming into his country on Saturday. It was run by a German woman with dreadlocks under the guise of a Dutch flag. This is what we're facing now. We're up against the supranational bodies that run our country. You're not in control of this. You might vote Boris in, okay? But he is not in control. The whole time we belong to the UN and we're bowing down to them. Thank goodness we've got President Trump in America. Thank goodness. The Marine Le Pens of this world.
And the Bolsonaro and Colombia.
And Bolsonaro, absolutely. So you can see how it's crept in. I'm afraid we've all, apart from a few of us, have sleepwalked into allowing this to happen. And until, actually, the Jews in this country, the Jewish media as well, and the BBC all take on what we're actually up against, then I think it is over. I do think it's over. but we've got to fight back.
No.
And what I would suggest you do, as a lot of Brexiteers have done, go and join your Conservative Association.
Yes.
Go and join your local Labour parties, and you have to change it from within. I don't know if the Brexit Party will get there. I hope so. I really hope they're changing things. I hate socialism, as I've said before, but it's up to all of you and your friends and your families to join the political parties and to change it from within. We're nearly there. We've nearly got Brexit, and I do believe we'll be out on the 31st of January. So we have nearly taken back control of our borders, but we haven't taken back control of our politics.
I'm one of those people that slipped through with Tony Blair's 50,000.
Good, you're very
I
welcome.
slipped through. I became British in 2 weeks.
What's he
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. I just want to introduce myself as making history as the first person in the history of the Board of Deputies to have been suspended for 6 years.
Yeah.
Where I still I just want to point out that actually when we talk about the Board of Deputies, it isn't the board, it's a tiny clique, hard left, who's actually running the board in the back room, number one. There was something that I observed, and I would like to ask you as an MEP, this is my question or rather request, really what we're seeing and why we haven't yet quite had the anti-Semitism here in England that we've had in Europe is because I realise that the European governments are still waging the unfinished war against the Jews.
What's he doing?
Thank you very much for an excellent presentation. I just want to introduce myself as making history as the first person in the history of the Board of Deputies to have been suspended for 6 years.
Yeah.
Where I still I just want to point out that actually when we talk about the Board of Deputies, it isn't the board, it's a tiny clique, hard left, who's actually running the board in the back room, number one. There was something that I observed, and I would like to ask you as an MEP, this is my question or rather request, really what we're seeing and why we haven't yet quite had the anti-Semitism here in England that we've had in Europe is because I realise that the European governments are still waging the unfinished war against the Jews by other means. And they're doing it under the radar. Germany, the governments of Germany and other countries, Sweden, by harming Israel every which way. And the way they're doing it is, if you look at NGO Monitor, they are pouring millions into undermining Jewish rights in Area C. So they are enabling the Arabs to take land all the time by various means. So my request to you is to expose this. They are flouting the law, the European Union, they are undermining the Jewish state of Israel, and that's part of the problem. It's anti-Semitism, it's a continuation of the war against us. And that is really, if we can do something about that, it will go a long way to stopping this.
I want to step in here because it is not just the Europeans. There are some very, very well-known, very wealthy British Jews who run a very big organisation who are building cities across the west bank of Israel. And yes, you know all about, there's a city called Rawabi, but there's not just Rawabi. If you look at the design, there's a cross that goes from north to south and east to west, and these cities are built to bring in not Jews, only Muslims, only Palestinians. And each city can take 40, 50, 60,000 people who are moving into the area, not housing people who need homes who are already in the area. And these are the British, Jewish, wealthy people who are funding this.
Can you name
So the organisation is called the Portland Trust. You can go and look it up. Here we go.
I'm not going to hug the microphone too much because this is a double act here. I think it's germ guilt. There's no other way to explain it. I'm not sure about what you said about the Jews. I don't know. I think you're a better authority on that. I think it really was German guilt. And then she saw the backlash, and she saw the alternative for Deutschland, and she quickly retracted what she did. And I think the other European nations, they've been run by socialists, they're naive as well. They've had no background, they've had no history of the Commonwealth that we have, so they haven't had the history of migration like we have. It's like Katie said, you know, they are now looking with shock about what is happening in their countries, and they're getting tougher because they ban the burqa. I mean, I wish that we could ban the burqa. You know, you can't go swimming in France in a burkini. I was there last week. You know, the swimming pool shut down. You know, we've got to get tougher like that, and it is those sort of socialist, very tolerant Northern European countries are now getting hardline, and that's what we have to do. I don't think it's anything specific maybe against the Jews. It's certainly, I don't think with the CDU and the Conservatives in Germany, it certainly is on the left. I think you should be very, very fearful of the left across Europe. And don't forget, we've got communists that sit in the European Parliament because they've been elected by people. And everybody fears the so-called far right, and they put us onto the right. But when I look across the chamber, and I stepped down as an MEP today, thank goodness, along with my good friend here, Stuart, because we feel that our work is done, that's now being taken up by others. But when you listen to the rabid anti-Semitism and the hate that comes across from the communists, and they have got a vote that influences what goes on in this country. Hopefully no more, but we're still there for another few months and they'll do their damnedest. So I think that's where it's coming from. It's been naivety and it's been guilt.
I'm good. Okay.
Do you want to say anything?
No, but I do need to go to the loo.
Go on.
That's the question.
Go on.
Please, may I go to the bathroom, please? Thank you very much.
We have
very
another
sorry.
question, shall we? Does anybody else need the bathroom? We're waiting for a question.
I have the same time.
And I've got lots of cables.